Hey, what's good YouTube? I'm Inferno back with another vlog on Future Warfare. I hope you're all doing well, and in this video we're going to be adding in a new unit to the game. But before we do that, let me explain in detail what Future Warfare is. Future Warfare is a 2D sci-fi strategy game. In this game, you can either play as the Galaxians or the Dreadnaughts. The Galaxians are a future human race that have expanded across dozens of planets in the galaxy, hence the name Galaxians. The Galaxians see themselves as one and have entered an era of peace and prosperity. The Dreadnaughts, however, were power hungry and wanted to control and conquer the universe. To accomplish this goal, they created a highly advanced AI. However, this plan backfired, and the AI became a hive mind of the society, with the sole purpose of conquering the universe and converting everyone to the hive mind. This game is to be played out in a number of rounds. At the beginning of each round, each player is going to select their units that they want to use to fight in the next round. The selected units will be spawned in, and will fight it out until there is no longer any units left from either side. The strategy of this game comes in with certain units countering each other, and also with certain units working well together. At the end of each round, there will be an upgrade shop that will allow the player to buy various upgrades for their units, including like health upgrades, damage upgrades, and some unique upgrades. After that, we begin round 2, and the unit selection phase begins again. And the game will continue these rounds until either the player defeats the enemy's base, which gives them the victory, or if the enemy beats the player, then they are defeated. Before I start creating the animations for Death's Executioner, I want to create a concept art that I can reference that's going to contain the details and how this unit's going to look. This drawing will be something I will reference when creating the animations. The Dreadnought Executioner is going to be the second most powerful and the second most expensive unit for the Dreadnought side. So I have a goal in mind of making this unit look the most powerful compared to the units that have came before it. And as you can tell, this unit uses an energy axe, or I guess more specifically, an energy battle axe. Up next, we shall begin working on the walking animation for the Dreadnought Executioner. Starting out with this animation, I ran into a lot of trouble working on the axe. I was just having a very hard time trying to imagine how the axe would sit in 3D space. So I had the idea of creating the axe in a 3D modeling application. So in my case, I had Blender on my desktop, so I booted that up and decided to create a basic version of the axe. So again, I am using my original drawing of the Dreadnought Executioner as reference to create a general shape of the axe. And from there, I rearranged the positioning of the battle axe. And then I snipped a clip of it and imported it directly into the walking animation as a reference. And this really helps my mind see how the axe would sit in 3D space. Cool, now that I have a reference for the axe, I'm just going to trace lines around it. I'm continuing to use my original drawing as reference, but this time I'm imagining what the Dreadnought Executioner will look like, looking from the side rather than from the front. Now I'm moving into my 7th frame of the walking animation. Firstly, I'm just focusing on the movement of the boots and the legs. Trying to be conscious of keeping a consistent movement between the frames so that the animation looks smooth and consistent. Once I have the feet and the legs down for the 7 frames, I wanted to add a little bit of torso rotation, just so that the walking animation doesn't look so static. This walking animation came out to a total of 12 frames. Now that we have the line art done for all the 12 frames, we're going to start filling in these frames. And I'm noticing that this animation already looks a lot different than the original drawing I was working on, which is fine, since I think this new design looks better anyways. Cool, looks like we're almost finished with this walking animation. Just adding in some finishing details, such as filling in the axe, adding some light sources to the armor. And on the edges of the axe, I want to have a glowing effect. To achieve this glowing effect, I want to have a high saturation of red on the outer rims of the axe. And yeah, pretty cool. We have our walking animation finished for the Dreadnought Executioner. Alright, let's get that attack animation started. Again, I'm going to be using Blender to help me with the battle axe. For the Executioner's attack, I want to do an overhead swing. So I recreated the overhead swing in person. And I realized that on completion of the swing, my torso turns inwards towards the camera. To show this in my attack animation, I'm going to need a reference to the Dreadnaught's torso. So I'm just creating a rough estimate in Blender. And I'm going to import it as a reference into the animation. Now that I have all my references, I'm just going to create some line art right on top of it. I realized that the Executioner's chest was just sticking out way too much. It just didn't look right. So in Photoshop, I just used the transform tool to collapse the Dreadnaught's chest in a bit more. I think adding in another frame right before the last one we created. So this frame will be right when the Executioner's torso is being turned towards the player. So for this animation, I want to have the Executioner swing the axe right back around into the overhead swing. And this turned out to be a lot harder than I originally imagined. So it took a lot of guesswork and playing around with the rotation of the axe in Blender to finally get a pretty good reference for each of the frames. Now that we got our references all sorted out, just going to start tracing each of these frames. Next, I wanted to create a sketch of the arms for each of the frames. As I was filling in the arms and the axes for each of the frames, I realized the animation kind of just looked lacking of a sort of punch, I guess you could say. And I realized the axe just looked like it was coming down way too slow. So I removed one of the middle frames. Now the axe comes down a lot swifter, which gives it the impact that I was looking for. Now we just gotta fill in those frames with the Executioner's torso turned inward. And I also want to add some lights reflecting off of the Executioner's armor. Because when the axe is fully swung and hits the ground, I want to have like energy discharge. So that's going to reflect off of the Dreadnaught's armor. Now we're going to add some glowing effect to each of the frames. And as the axe is being swung down, I wanted to leave a tracer effect. Just because I was curious how it would look. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with it, so I'm going to keep it. To show the energy discharge on impact, I wanted to do little cracks of energy going through the ground. I also played around with the tracer effect on the impact frame. However, I didn't like the effect it had on the animation as a whole. In the second frame of context, I want to show the cracks of energy receding back. And to add some more detail to this animation, I'm going to show the light that's getting reflected off of the handle of the battle axe. And yeah, that's going to be it for this animation. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Now for the attack and walking animation, I'm going to create some sprite sheets in Photoshop. And I'm creating my own grids for each of these sprite sheets. This grid will help me know if the sprite's evenly spaced out. For the purchasing card and the icon for the Death's Executioner, I'm just going to use the original concept art I did for it. Now I'm going to create a prefab for Death's Executioner. And within it, I'm going to put the health bar prefab that I've created for the other units. Alright, and there's going to be a few more game objects I'm going to add into the prefab. We're going to have a range game object that's going to be a trigger that activates when there's a Galaxian within this box here. And we're going to have a standing trigger game object, and this is going to be activated when there's a Dreadnought standing in front, which will activate the standing state for the Executioner. And lastly, we're going to have a spacing game object, and this is going to be used for the Dreadnought spawn, to let the spawn know not to spawn another Dreadnought until this unit has left the spawn. Alright, let's begin programming the Executioner's attack script. So we want to account for the amount of time it takes for the Executioner to begin its animation towards contact. So we're going to have a first delay, which is going to be equal to 1 second. And within 1 second, it's going to begin playing the animation once the Executioner starts attacking, and play until this frame here, and that will be the contact frame. And once the Executioner makes first contact, we're going to apply damage to the Galaxian it's attacking. And if it's not the first attack, we're going to change the attack delay to 1.5 instead, and that's going to be the amount of time it's going to take to loop through the entire attack cycle. Within the exact same script, I created another method that's going to have a bunch of if statements for each of the Galaxian units. So it's going to check for the correct Galaxian type that's being attacked. Then we're going to have another if statement containing the attack delay. This is going to apply the 1 second or 1.5 second attack delay. And once that timer has been cycled through, we're going to apply the damage to the correct Galaxian unit. Here's a quick look at the animator within Unity for the Executioner. So the Executioner will just simply have 3 animation states, just like all the other units. We're going to have a walking animation state, attack animation state, and a standing animation state. The default animation state will be the walking, and the Executioner will be walking unless there is a Galaxian within range of it. And if that's the case, then the Executioner will begin its attacking animation. Or if there is a Dreadnought blocking its way, then the Executioner will stop walking and just stand there. Cool, so we have most of the scripts done for the Executioner. However, as you can tell, it is still quite buggy. because the Galaxians do not interact with the Executioner. The Galaxians just bump into the Executioner and make it move in weird ways. So to fix this, we just have to go into each of the Galaxian attack scripts and make a case for the Dreadnought Death's Executioner, so that the Galaxians can see that there's a Dreadnought right in front of them and begin attacking. And there we have it. We have finally finished creating Death's Executioner for the Dreadnought side. And yeah, I'm super pleased with how this came out, honestly. I think it's a huge jump from the past units I've created. That attack animation is just really satisfying when it one-shots one of the Galaxians. And that's all it takes, baby. It's just one Dreadnought Death's Executioner, and you win the game. Easy. Don't forget to hit that like button on your way out. And if you want to see some more updates on Future Warfare, please subscribe. Appreciate you, and have a good rest of your day or night.